No one could get through to the billionaire's daughter. I was the janitor who did, and trust me, I didn't walk into that office looking for a miracle. I was pushing a squeaky cart on the night shift in a glass tower on Chicago's Gold Coast, minding my own business, when I heard a kid sobbing, the kind of cry that tightens your chest, even if you don't know her name. I stepped off the service elevator, ignored the security guard's look, and found a little girl curled under a mahogany desk, while her mother, Helena Pierce, the Helena from the magazine covers, stood there with a friend who had a pearl smile and knives for eyes. I didn't say much. I just slid down the wall and sat on the floor, small and safe, pulled a beat-up paperback from my pocket and said, "This is about a kid who thought he lost his person." The girl peeked out, red eyes, wet lashes. "What's his name?" she whispered. "You tell me," I said. "Cole," she answered, and moved a few inches closer, like a deer deciding I wasn't dangerous. The room changed temperature right then. You know what I mean. Next morning, Helena gave me 5 minutes, no more. I showed up with the same book and a pocket notebook, left the mop in the closet, and sat cross-legged on the marble with Lily. That was her name. Drawing a map of a place that felt safe, a little house with a light that stayed on even when the person you loved was gone. Progress is a word rich people don't trust until they can measure it, so while Lily's breathing calmed, the whisper machine spun up. Clarissa Monroe, Helena's friend with the pearls, called this a liability, said an employee, a janitor, should never be alone with a fragile child, asked what the board would say, what the other mothers would whisper at the club. She wasn't wrong about the whispering. You'd be shocked what people say over $40 halibut when they think you can't hear. I kept my head down and my notes tight. What they didn't know was that before the headlines took it all, I used to be Dr. Jordan Ellis, Pediatric Trauma Northwestern Fellowship, a stack of papers no one reads until they have to. I lost the title after I refused to falsify a report for the Fairchilds. Big family, big endowments, bigger reach. Their son hurt someone, and they wanted a clinical fairy tale. I wouldn't write it. Investigations appear when people like that want them, so do allegations. My license got suspended pending a review that never came, my savings evaporated. My engagement broke with a short text and a long silence, and I learned how to wax conference tables I used to present at. Yeah, that happened. What I still had was the work, the discipline, and a habit of documenting everything. With Helena's consent, I recorded sessions, logged symptoms, celebrated small wins, like eye contact and steady shoulders, used our shorthand, bees in the stomach for panic. Taught 4 and 6 out breathing, because longer exhales tell your body the building isn't burning. Every day, Lily scooted a little closer. Every day, Clarissa turned a little colder. The concierge started asking for my ID like I had just parachuted in. A board member said in an elevator, "One headline can tank a fund." Clarissa smiled, that smile you can feel on your skin, and said, "A man in your position could leverage this into a nice little rise." I said, "Everything I leverage goes into charts, not bank accounts." She laughed without moving her face. My studio apartment sat over a laundromat that never slept the thump of washers like a second heart, and its walls filled up with manila folders, the way a storm map fills with pins. Folder 1. Lily's Progress. Folder 2. Protection. Consents, timestamps, best practice guidelines. Folder 3. The Past. Every email and transcript from the day the Fairchild machine tried to turn me into a cautionary tale. I called the one colleague who hadn't walked when the headlines hit. "Aisha, I said I need a second set of eyes on a kid who carries a heavy backpack of loss." She said, "Hand it. Still breaking the rules that need breaking, huh?" We laughed, the tired kind. Then the twist began. One afternoon, Helena closed her office door, sat like she hadn't sat down in a year, and said, "Clarissa sent me articles about you." I didn't flinch. "I can show you the uncut footage," I said. "The day they asked me to lie, the day I said no, the day the investigation with no name took my keycard and my title." She watched, jaw tight, silence expensive. "Why didn't you sue?" she asked. I did the math, I said. Money is recovery for them. Truth is recovery for me. She rubbed her temples, said Clarissa won't stop. And I said, then let her finish it, but in the light. Clarissa organized a rooftop dinner for concerned friends, because concern is the branding on every harmful thing that moves in high places. Lakeview glass rails, crystal stems, the kind of scene where a single raised eyebrow can change somebody's job. I didn't walk in wearing a gray polo with my name stitched like an apology. I wore my one decent suit, the one I keep for funerals and apparently resurrections. "This is a show," Clarissa said. "No," I said, setting a neat stack of folders on the table. "This is a record." I introduced myself properly. Jordan Ellis, doctor, and full standing license restored pending the final rubber stamp the board never advertises. The air changed again. I slid logs of Lily's progress school therapist notes, time-stamped texts from Helena, then laid out the map of the smear. Calls to board members' messages in their club chat, where my name turned into a cautionary emoji, the polite poison they poured into Dorman's ears. "You recorded private conversations," one of them snapped. "Only in public places, and only when my name was the topic," I said. "Legal and necessary." Then I put the Fairchild timeline on the screen. The request to falsify my refusal, their plan to make me disappear. Aisha popped in on video from her hospital office and said straight to the camera, "What you're seeing with Lily isn't magic. It's trauma-informed care delivered with consistency. What happened to Dr. Ellis was a professional hit. I'll testify anywhere truth still matters." Clarissa clinked her glass hard enough to crack a lip and called it extortion. "No," I said, sliding the final folder across. "It's reparation without the courtroom. We open a center on the near north side. Families who can pay above market. Families who can't pay nothing. You and your friends become founding patrons. Not because I need your money, because I want your names connected to something bigger than your fear. Or we can litigate defamation and discrimination in a room with public discovery. I have time. Do you?" The lake breathed warm and the room went very quiet, the way rooms do when power realizes the road just curved. Helena said, "I'm in," and stared down the others. Pens scratched. Signatures landed. And that was the night the map changed. 6 months later, a brass plaque said, "The Ellis Center for Resilient Minds," which still feels too big on my shoulders, but the kids don't care. They run through hallways painted soft point at the cloud-shaped sound panels, roll pinwheels to hear the bees in their bellies quiet down. We built a sensory room, trained intake, like dignity as oxygen, started day one with a wait list, and never saw the end of it. Helena stood by the window at the opening ceremony and watched Lily show another kid how to count breaths. 4 and 6 out, smile with your eyes. And she whispered, "You saved my daughter." I shook my head. She did the work. I just laid out the map. People started calling me doctor again. Hospitals asked me to speak. The board mailed a letter that said, "Restored," like they were returning a library book. And a Tribune reporter ran a front-page profile with a photo where I looked older than I feel and younger than I fear. Clarissa showed up to the gala in a dress that could buy a small car and smiled for photos beneath the donor wall like her name had always lived there. Folks asked if I forgave her. I said forgiveness is above my pay grade. Accountability isn't. Months later, she found me after a breakfast and said, "Dr. Ellis." I opened the door, "Mrs. Monroe." She swallowed. "The work you're doing, it matters." I nodded. It mattered before it was fashionable. Then the Fairchild sent a letter, not a check, not a settlement, a legal apology asking to meet. I wrote 3 sentences back. "Thank you for correcting the record. Publish it where you published the lie. We are at capacity." They ran it online and in print. Comments did what comments do. None of it pierced whatever armor the last 6 years built. The truth was enough. Do people change, really? Not much. They rearrange. Money learns new tricks, status updates its software, and the same city that once let me buff its floors now wants me to talk about courage and integrity. I say yes, sometimes no, most of the time because there are notes to write and kids to sit beside on the floor. And if you're wondering about revenge, I didn't chase it. Revenge hurts. I chose to build. Is it satisfying to watch people who buried you write checks that grow trees in your yard? Sure, but the real payoff is Tuesday at 2:10, when a kid who hasn't spoken all month looks up and whispers, "Can we leave the light on even when I go home?" And you get to say, "Yes, always yes." So tell me where you stand, because this is the part that keeps me up. If you've ever been judged before, you were known, pushed to the edges, underestimated on sight. How did you push back? What did it cost, and was it worth it? Is leveraging power for a good outcome still wrong, or is it the only language power listens to? Should people like Clarissa get a second chance to do right, or does accountability mean a long, hard distance? Drop your story in the comments. Argue with me if you need to hit subscribe if you want more uncomfortable truths and small lights left on. I'll be there reading every word.